you can almost paint the athlete the way they look and through the way they function on a force plate. So someone can find out just basically, essentially, what your body is doing just on your movement strategy. That used to be like somewhat like sort of dangerous to me, but I feel like now we're getting to the level where data may be giving us accurate insights to a person's physiology, or force plate data, I should say, or force. This is what I'm trying to. I'm really pushing heavily. I'm going to have to criticize myself the next episode and try to poke holes. Well, definitely poke holes to it. But I want to talk about what you did again to give more insight to the possibility, because you're part of a study that actually ran this, and that's interesting to me. So like, give me the context, and let's kind of restate it, just because I think visually it gives a good idea of what we're talking about. And what I'll do is I kind of like restate it to evoke the same sort of idea that I think you can do on a force plate. So
yeah, please restate it, because something came to mind when you were saying something about and everything that we have been talking about initially here is when you have someone on force plate and you just measure them based on their cues or whatever, and you know what these strategies they automatically, without even active thought, just performing accurately right there and then when you have a force trace based on the different cues, and then I would try to see that how does these strategies relate to how they move on the court in terms of the so to speak the successful actions on the court that coaches want them to perform, whether it's a defensive action, transitional action. Okay, we're talking basketball here, by the way.
Yeah. You know what? Let's do this. Let's keep it a basketball. You worked in the basketball arena. I worked in basketball, and you know what? That basketball is fast and growing right now. The technology in basketball is amazing, and I think what it's doing is it's pushing the world. I think it's pushing innovation. I think it's pushing technology. Let's keep it basketball.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So basically, say we have a set of cues that you already have examined, so to speak, based on their jumping from a squat jump perspective, from a kind of move perspective, and then a stiffness or jump perspective, and then you have two different sub cues. For instance, the jump as high as you can, that's one, and then we have the jump as quick as you can, and then you try to get sort of a trend on one individual, whoever the individual is, the guard or is a power forward or whatever, and then you try to see if there is any correlation based on their successful actions on the court, whether it is a defensive action, transitional action from defense to offense, and then an offensive action, or the opposite, ending it from an offensive to transition to defense. And you can see if there is, okay, in this instance, he's more, say, shallow in his strategy, whatever that means in this context. And then you can see, in these types of actions, that's where you have greater transfer, or, which is maybe more important, is there is a dissociation between what we see in the lab, jumping and cueing, and then what he or she does on the court. And maybe there is a skill component that is related to that, a contextual component, maybe because of the time constraints in the playing environment or the space that he or she has to move in. But say, for instance, if we find that it's more of a physical constraint, like for instance what we just seen, and we tell this guy, hey, what we see on the court here, the reason why you're unsuccessful is because this and this is observed on the first one, and we think maybe that's going to need to be improved if we want to see you succeed in those actions that the coach wants you to succeed on the court. Does that make sense?
It does. Let me tell you, I think something is real here. There's a lot of value here. I am the way when I hear you speak, it really sort of reconfirms like this is a pathway that people just don't know about currently and should be using. First of all, not only force plates in the weight room, but force plates on the court. ForceX Lite by Valve is these mini sort of force plates. You can get them. Heck, you can get two scales, put them side by side, and get the same value. What you're talking about is measuring, getting objective standard for measuring someone's movement strategy, their force signature. And essentially, if you know, one coaching cue gives a different type of force signature, another coaching cue gives a different other type of force signature, and you can determine based off of math, off of physics, off of understanding the surface, you know, that one type of coaching cue is going to be far greater for that person's future in the most general sense, as it relates on average to the court, or it might even give them greater range in understanding who they are and what they respond to help their strategy versus the other, So you're getting a sense to measure someone's force signature in the weight room versus on the court, and that's just by evaluating the data, both on what you see on the force plates in the weight room versus on the court. I don't see if I'm working in at the NBA level. Heck, it doesn't even have to be the NBA level. It could be at any level, and I have an opportunity to help someone move better. I don't know why I don't have a flat screen TV hooked up to some force plates and having them run through like their normal movements, maybe touching the force plate a couple times, maybe they're dug in the ground, so that the athlete's focusing on shooting and their mechanics. The flat screen is kind of showing their force signature. It looks like maybe like an EKG, and after a while, you become sort of an EKG specialist as it relates to movement. You kind of know a little bit. It's almost like music notes, right? Like you start noticing a little bit more of a pattern, and you say, man, you're doing too much on the right. And every time you do too much on the right, it seems like post-practice or 3 days later, you start talking about like how much your knee hurts because you're doing too much on the right. Well, here's what your force signature is saying. Let's do a little bit more on the left. Like let's share the load so that we protect that right side. And I think there's a number of things that can happen from that, and I don't think it's just limited to, injury sort of, strategies to diminish the probability of injury. I think it's also important for return from injury, and saying, hey, this used to be your pattern. This is your force signature. This is how much it's changed, and that could be live action, that can be something that I think everyone becomes attuned to once they start putting force plates in basketball courts. Tell me about, let's go back to that experiment though, that you had a chance to perform.
Yeah, sure. Which aspects do you want me to?
Let's review. Let's just start from the beginning because I think it's really comprehensive. And each time that you explain another subject, I just want to highlight what that might look like for today, using devices that I think don't amount to more than $500. So let's see if I'm capable of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We're back in. Let's put it this way. We're back. We are at we're at training camp for the NBA basketball. Okay. And